Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel for a big change that they just showcased on the Titan Talk that is going to be coming to Smite 2. It's a system-wide change that's going to affect the entire game, pretty much. And it's going to be called CC buffering. And essentially, I'll give you a very quick TLDR at the start if that's all you're interested in, but we're going to go into more detail in this video because it is going to be a really impactful change to the whole game. Basically, the short TLDR of it is if you are in the pre-fire animation of an ability, you will still cast that ability even if you get CC'd. So if you're like throwing out Danza 2, his jar or whatever, it's got quite a long pre-fire. If you start firing that and then you get Athena taunted or you get Ymir frozen, you're still going to throw out that jar. Your camera will still be locked. So if you get like Ymir frozen, it's going to go basically where you were looking when you got Ymir frozen. You won't be able to turn it. But that ability will still go off and then you'll be stunned, you know, after the ability fires basically. Dashes and channeled abilities won't be affected by the system. Leaps will though, so leaps can still jump. So if you start your and her jump and then you get taunted, you will still jump through the air while taunted. Basically, nothing else will happen. And then when you land, you'll still be taunted towards the Athena. And so yeah, that's the basic TLDR, but we're going to go into a lot more detail here on how this will impact the game and what specific like interactions will look like, and they have videos and stuff. So yeah, let's just jump right in.
Big topic today.
Yeah.
Shall we get right into it?
Let's do it.
Cool. I can't believe we're talking about it already.
I know.
This is crazy.
And I will kind of preface this as like, this is the beginning of a week of talking.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to be talking about one new system today. And then our current plan is that every day next week, Isaiah and I are going to be here and we're going to be talking about something new for the free-to-play or for the January update.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then we're going to be running flash tests where you can try that thing that same day. So all next week is going to be hype week of announcements.
Wow, that is super exciting, man. That is super exciting. They're probably going to be showcasing a lot of things that we as ambassadors have known about for a long time but can't really talk about. So that's going to be really cool. I don't know if by the entire week they mean the usual Monday, Wednesday, Friday for Titan Talks, or if they mean literally every single day. But yeah, they're going to be showcasing a bunch of new mechanics and systems that they're going to be bringing to Smite 2 in the big January patch. And apparently doing flash tests for them, which is super exciting. So next week is going to be big. I'm probably going to have a very busy week myself. Every single day I'll be making a video on what this new thing is that they've showcased and probably streaming the flash tests and stuff like that. So that's going to be super exciting. But yeah, for today we have CC buffering that they're showcasing.
When I was previewing this to the ambassadors, I said this is a boots removal level change. And some said that I undersold it. Some said that I oversold it. You know, it takes...
Yeah, in terms of undersold or oversold, I can't really comment on this because I unfortunately missed the flash tester that they did for ambassadors. I didn't actually get to try out this system, and that really sucks. I think I was out at the time or something like that. I was busy with real life stuff, so I wasn't able to attend the test that they did for this. And really, I feel like this is a system you are going to have to test. I don't think it's going to be something you can, like, you know, read a few paragraphs about and figure out how it's actually going to feel when you play the game. I think it is something you'll need to test. And also, they are planning to ship this to live servers for CA8 later this week. So like Thursday or Friday probably is when we're going to be able to actually see this implemented in game, and they're going to start gathering feedback on it and stuff. So you will be able to play with it very soon, but I would say reserve your judgment until you've played with it, because I feel like it is really going to be a very much feels based thing. You know, playing with this system for one match will be like thousands of times more impactful on how you feel about the system than reading paragraphs and stuff.
CC buffering.
Ooh.
Yeah,
CC
it sounds
buffering.
underwhelming, but it's really big.
It's really important. But before we get into like exactly what it is, because we're only 35 minutes late, exactly it is, and I got to make you wait a few more minutes. I kind of want to talk about how we arrived at this decision to what we're doing. So one of the primary things when we were talking internally about Smite 2 is we need to reduce CC. It's one of the top things that our community talks about. Mm-hmm. It's a frustrating factor. So we're going to create Smite 2 and we get to reduce CC, and it's going to be great. But as we started, we realized that every time we took a CC from a character, everyone hated playing them.
Yeah,
you know?
you remember we tested Anubis where the wrap like slowed instead of stunning? And everybody was like, this is garbage, you know?
Oh, yeah. These gods have been designed around the way that Smite 1 worked and with their CCs and stuff. Most gods, if you removed any of their major CCs, they would just feel absolutely awful. I've talked about this with Thor before, like everyone's saying, oh, why does Thor wall and ult stun for so long? And it's because Thor only works with them stunning for that long. You know, if you made Thor wall stun for like 0.5 seconds, or if you remove the stun from it entirely, he would just feel absolutely awful to play. He wouldn't feel like the same god.
And since we are generally happy with the one relic system, I know this is a big discussion point on Reddit and all that kind of stuff.
We're still looking into a lot of feedback around the One Relic system.
Exactly. Something that we're still, looking into, but we're still generally happy with it.
Yeah, the One Relic system, I've talked about it many times in videos before. I think they can make it work. I think it is going to be a big shift to the game, though, and they do need to make major changes. And this is the kind of major change that they do need to make if they're going to stick with the One Relic system. So this is exciting.
It takes us back to that age-old problem of too much CC. So if we want to push forward with this One Relic system, and as of right now we do, but again, always talking about it, then we need to find a way to make CC less frustrating.
Yeah. So
if only there was something we could do.
If only there was something we could do.
Yeah, like if only there was something we can do. Go ahead and keep going here, Isaiah. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, Alex, and I think it's important to mention that even though too much CC does feel bad, the reality is this might need CC. Obviously we are compared to the other MOBAs a lot, Dota and League of Legends being the main two. There's a core difference there in that those have a lot of point and click abilities or basic attacks that cannot be missed. Smite.
Yeah, a lot of auto-targeting stuff, especially in League of Legends and Dota. Obviously there are other MOBAs that don't work like that. Predecessor is a good example of one. And yeah, those kind of games, like Smite, everything is a skill shot almost. There's very few things in the game. Obviously you can say like New Arrow and Lethal and stuff like that, but the vast majority of stuff, including basic attacks, are all skill shots. And so you do need some kind of CC and lockdown, because if everyone's just running around at full speed all the time and is never actually standing still, it's just going to be incredibly frustrating. Everyone's going to miss 90% of their abilities. Maybe not 90%, but you get where I'm coming from. Whereas like in League of Legends, you don't necessarily need a CC to be able to at least hit someone because a lot of it is lock on.
We realized that what we needed was not less crowd control, but instead more counterplay.
Yeah.
Crowd control.
That makes sense.
The potential depth in this is crazy. Anyway, yeah, go for it.
Yes.
Sorry.
And that takes us. Oh wait, we're not. You moved my slides around, didn't you? What's What's my next slide here, Isaiah? Oh, right. So we're going still why we are introducing CC buffering into Smite 2. So you can go and keep on going. Getting interrupted out of abilities is easily, as Alex said, Kumba 2, there are a million abilities that have this problem that just get interrupted out of CC over and over and over again.
Hunbots 2.
Hunbots 2. Not even these really
Hearts
long
2 especially,
fires, like Danza 2, Danza 1 gets interrupted all the time. I get interrupted out of Raw 3 a lot. When someone's diving on
Raw
me,
3 is
I want to
another
get
one.
it down. It can really end up getting interrupted a lot. And it's extremely rare to have a gameplay change that benefits all levels of play. And this is probably my favorite part of this is so often we are forced to choose between, do we help new players? Do we help more casual players? Do we help pro players? And we have to balance all of those ideas. And woe is us, game design's really hard.
Yes.
But we often, you can only give so much to each component without taking away from others.
Yeah, like sometimes they are antithetic to each other. Sometimes, a pro player or a high level player like myself might want the game to be more complex and have more ways to have skill expression and stuff like that. But then the more casual player might just get completely overwhelmed by, how much complexity is in the game and how much stuff you need to know. And so, yeah, they often are antithetic to each other, and you've got to kind of maintain that balance of like, it is a competitive game. You do want to have a strong amount of skill expression in it, but you also don't want to immediately scare away every single new player that tries the game.
I think this system does something exciting for every level of play, which is really, really rare. Yep. At lower levels, it's going to make the game feel like Smite, but so much smoother and so much less frustrating. And at the higher levels, it's going to raise the skill ceiling in a way that we have never done.
Never seen before.
Never.
Yeah.
Even the boots removal didn't change how you're interacting with every play on the map at any given time in the way this does. So it feels in a way that is truly worthy of a sequel. Yes. This is the type of change that you go, oh, they could not have done this in a big Smite 1 update. This is why you go to Smite 2.
Right. We should talk about what actually.
Let's talk about what it is.
Yes.
So,
Buffering.
How do you do it? Well, if you see an ability coming, let's say you see a Ymir freeze coming, and I want to cast my ability, but I know normally I couldn't cast my ability because it wouldn't go off because I'd get frozen. Now, if you start firing your ability will go off. End of story. You cannot get interrupted out of an ability if you have already started casting. If you get interrupted in the firing stage of your ability, and I know there will be a lot of questions, I can answer those as we go, hopefully. You will still be CC'd. Even if if you're in the middle of casting your ability, you will still get stunned. You will just continue to play your animation until you've gotten through the fire stage of the ability. And then you'll get put into your stunned state in this example. instead of doing your post fire. But your ability still goes off, but you are also still stunned. Everybody has done something in this interaction, right?
Yeah, so essentially, like, you will still complete the ability. So in theory, you can sort of almost waste a little bit of the CC. It's not completely wasted because, like, for the example of Danza 2 that I've been using throughout the video, like, if you get Ymir freezed in the pre-fire of Danza's 2, the ability will still go off, but you will have your camera locked as if you were stunned, and so it might go off and not go exactly where you wanted it to go. So it's not completely like you're immuning the CC, but it almost is a little bit. You know, let's say Danza 2's pre-fire is like 0.4 seconds, and you get hit by a 1 second stun. You've immuned 40% of that stun because you were still doing stuff for 40% of that time before, you know, the pre-fire ends and you get officially stunned. And so it's going to be a really massive change for the game, honestly, because normally, you know, the way you would play would be like, oh, I think this Ymir is about to freeze me. I'm not going to bother using my Danza 2 because I'm just going to get interrupted out of the pre-fire. Whereas now you might say, oh, I'm about to get Ymir frozen. Maybe I will start the pre-fire of my Danza 2 and put it on myself, and it's still going to go off. I'm going to immune some of that stun, and then, you know, even when I get stunned at the end, he's probably taunted to my jar, and I can counterplay with that. So yeah, it's going to completely change the way you play the game, like flip it on its head. You know, normally if you think you're about to get CC'd, you don't use an ability, whereas now if you're thinking about CC'd, it's actually the best play to use your ability because you will potentially immune some of that CC duration with your pre-fire animation. There's going to be a lot of you know, unique counterplay. Like, let's use Danza 2 again. If Bellona is about to jump on you and you see her like start up her ultimate and she's about to jump on you and stun you, you can just Danza jar on yourself, and even if you get stunned in the pre-fire of that, the jar's still going to go off onto you. It will taunt the Bellona to the jar, and then you can shred her down afterwards. Like, it's going to completely change the way the game plays, which is why I said at the start of the video, reserve any major judgments you have about this system, positive or negative, until you've tried it in game. And again, I will say I haven't tried it in game yet. I'm going to be trying it out the same time as you guys when it goes live. I didn't actually get to play in the ambassador test because I was busy. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I think this is going to be a massive, massive fundamental change to the game. You're going to play the game quite differently in regards to CC, I think.
The new rules are simple with, I should have put an asterisk, because there are going to be exceptions, of course, but
yeah, there is a
if
few
you successfully
exceptions.
input an ability, and you get CC'd, it will go off. No more, oh, I heard the audio of my button, but it got canceled. No more, I saw the visual effects of my ability going off, but then it got canceled. None of that. It will just, if the server got your ability, and there will still be times where on higher ping environments or you know,
yeah, ping is still going to be an issue with this kind of stuff. You know, if you're playing on 100 ping, you know, if a pre-fire animation is 0.2 seconds and you're on 0.1 seconds of delay, which is what 100 ping is, you know, a lot of the time, you know, on your screen, you're like 0.1 seconds ahead of where the server thinks you are or whatever. So on your screen, you might see 0.1 seconds of your pre-fire go off, but the server doesn't think you've started the pre-fire yet, and so you do still get CC'd out of it. So on higher pings, you probably still will experience a little bit of interruption, but it will probably be a lot less often. You know, this is a number pulled completely out of my ass, but let's say like 30% of the time you get interrupted out of stuff in this, like where you've started it and it happened on your screen. Let's say 30% of the time that's ping related, and the other 70% of the time you actually just got interrupted out of your pre-fire animation, so it will remove all that 70% of the time that it happens. But there will still be some times where it will happen if it's ping related.
But we do have more examples. So
let's show them some examples, right? Because
okay, here we go. We've got some video examples. This will sort of give you, you know, if reading a paragraph on it is like next to useless on how you like actually perceive this system, and playing the game is like, you know, 100%, you're gonna really get a feel for if it's good. These videos will be like somewhere in the middle. You know, I think they will be useful for figuring out how the system is gonna work, but you will still need to play with this, I think, to really truly get a feel for if it's a positive or negative change for the game. But yeah, these video examples will definitely be a lot better for like visualizing how the system is gonna work rather than reading bullet points.
In the iteration stage, this allows the post fires to fully animate. We got some feedback that it was unclear when people were in the CC'd state. So now we just let you animate until, let's say, for Danza, the bottle leaves your hand and then he gets stunned.
Yes.
You know,
oh, that's good. Yeah. When they initially showed us like a presentation in the Ambassador Discord, it animated the entire ability, and it did kind of feel a little bit weird. You know, this doesn't really change anything like gameplay wise. You know, if your post fire was going to be 0.5 seconds and instead you're stunned for that 0.5 seconds, you know, it's not really gonna matter at all. But it will just be helpful for clarity. You know, it'll have less time where you're going through animations while stunned. It'll be only the necessary amount of like your pre-fire.
And these are in slow-mo, so you gotta get a little bit of a visual idea to see what's happening.
They do improve the quality in a second.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Yeah, there we go.
It autoed that time.
Cool.
So the Danza knows that Bacchus stun is coming. and starts casting his 2 right before he gets stunned. You've all done this a million
Yeah, so there you go. Right before the stun hits, he starts the pre-fire. He's drinking his sake bottle there. Gets stunned.
with a CC.
Still goes off. So that's basically how the system is going to work. And then at the end there,
You're gonna
we'll
get
play
stunned.
once more.
I'm going to start casting my ultimate so it makes me CC immune so I don't get stunned. Now, you can
So you can kind of see, like, right there is where he starts the pre-fire of the ability. He's not stunned yet.
do
Boom, now he's stunned, but he pre-fired beforehand.
it.
Jar still goes
with a
off.
more-
And then once he completes the Jar ability, he goes back to being in a regular stun state. And he can't move that whole time. Obviously, you can move while you're doing Danza Jar. I think you're slowed while you're doing it, but you can move while you're sort of like drinking and then throwing it in like that pre-fire animation. If you're stunned, as soon as you get stunned, you'll stop moving. So you still take the regular effects of being stunned. It's just the animation is going to continue to play out. And of course, as I said before, you're going to be camera locked as well the second you get stunned. So it can make you miss the ability. It's just, it will still go off to where you were targeting the second you got stunned. Oh, I guess when we're talking about this level of time frame, at the millisecond that you got stunned rather than the second that you got stunned.
normal ability, but you are not CC immune. This Danza could not rotate his camera in order to get there. He's still stunned.
So yeah, there you
for
go.
that
That's how the
full
system's
duration.
generally
He
gonna
cannot
look.
move during that time, but he gets his ability off.
All right, I'll go into the next one. Oh, all of them are playing at the
Oh,
same time.
perfect.
Yes, this is with a knock up as well.
So again, this
We'll get it
one
in
is
HD in a
is
second.
knock up with the same
There you go.
ability there, which is Danza AO2. Normally feels impossible.
So boom, he starts the animation.
to
I
cast
guess
that
we'll go
ability
through
around
once
the
more.
Bacchus.
You can see that it
This
still
time,
goes
he's
off.
going to be knocked up that whole duration, right? But he sees it coming and can still
So let's do a bit of a pause here.
Still be used.
So you can see there, right before the flop hits, he started drinking the sake bottle. He started the pre-fire animation, and then boom, knock up hits.
During the
Continues the animation even while being knocked up, which is kind of wild. I feel like this is something they could have not have easily implemented into UE3 Smite 1. But yeah, he's still doing the animation there, even while knocked up.
using
And then right here is actually where the ability ends. And you can see that because he goes into like a ragdoll falling state, which is what happens when you drop down from being airborne from a knockup. And so right at that frame there, basically, is where the ability has ended. He is now just regularly knocked up. And he falls down to the
his
ground.
cast
And then it's
time
done.
during the CC.
Yeah.
Right. This is a great example because the knockup lasts about as long as the pre-fire does. So
Yeah, you can
if
see
Danza's
right there
still
where he sort of
vulnerable
like
during that
times out
time,
of the
course,
ability
you can
and
get
goes into a
Relish
regular falling
ulted,
state.
He's still a free hit for everybody, all that kind of stuff. But Danza still got his ability.
Yeah, interestingly, what happens if you do get a wheel exalted in that? Like, that's going to be kind of weird, right? Like, you get knocked up, you're still in the pre-fire of Danza 2. If a Wheelix pulls you to her, does it, like, throw out the jar while you're being pulled to a Wheelix? I guess so, probably. It's going to be a bit of a weird thing to get used to, I think.
Off and didn't feel helpless during that time, which makes the game feel so much better for these characters that have these longer pre-fires. And as we said, the goal.
Yeah, this one is really interesting as well. So this is Athena taunt with Anher Impale. And so you can see here, the Anher has started the pre-fire for his 2, gets taunted, immediately points towards the Athena, as you would do when you were taunted, and the Impale hits the Athena, essentially impales her into the wall. So you can see it's going to be some very interesting counterplay and stuff like that. You know, Anher, you can normally in this situation, Anher will be taunted as normal, but it wouldn't take Impale's cooldown. Whereas now, you know, there's a bit of a trade-off there. And so yeah, beforehand, in this scenario, Anher would get interrupted out of the pre-fire of his 2, but the 2 would not go on cooldown. If you get interrupted in pre-fire for the vast majority of abilities, they don't go on cooldown in Smite. Whereas now, the ability will still go off, but the ability will also go on cooldown. So in this scenario, Athena eats the Impale, but now Impale's on cooldown. So Athena can like kind of guaranteed eat an Anher Impale if she kind of like dash taunts in and maybe Anher's trying to impale a teammate or something. It's not going to go anywhere near the teammate because Anher's forced to look at Athena. She's going to eat the Impale, which gives her some extra supportive utility to be able to protect her teammates. And it's immediately going to put the Impale on cooldown. It's not really what Anher wanted to do with it. You know, she's obviously taken a hit from that. But generally, if you're the support, you want to take those hits and then you put that on cooldown rather than like as soon as the Anher was untaunted in the previous system, Impale's still available. It doesn't go on cooldown if you get interrupted in pre-fire. So yeah, there's some very interesting like, you know, takes and gives with this kind of a system. I think it's going to be super interesting to play with. We're probably going to find a ton of interactions where like a matchup completely changes just based on this.
Athena is going to be better into those types of situations because she's
going to be better in a supportive aspect, but as I said, there's some give and take. You know, if Athena normally would just want to taunt the Anher in and immediately get her team to nuke him before he's even untaunted and before he could impale again because it wouldn't take the cooldown in the previous system, it will take the cooldown now, but Athena also has to eat an impale that she might not have eaten in the previous system. So it is a little bit of kind of a give and take with this system.
It's so tempting to like address some chat feedback because I am excited to see that there is still some confusion and some concern, because I think there will be a lot of confusion about this system, even when you've seen videos and stuff. As I said at the start and throughout the video, I feel like you're going to have to play with this to get a feel for it, and I haven't played with it yet. As I said, I missed the test. I'll be trying it out alongside you guys on the live client, and we'll see if we get a feel for it, because I am cautiously optimistic about this system is what I would say in general, without having played it. I think it could be a massive change for the game. It could be a massive positive, but I think it could also cause some frustrating interactions. It feels like Smite, just smoother.
Yeah.
That's really the point.
All right, Aggro. What about leaps?
What about
and CC
leaps?
buffering?
Yes.
Yeah, leaps is
So
interesting.
we had to go through each kind of ability type one by one and see like how this system worked. And leaps are an interesting one. So.
Yes, leaps are interesting. So I see a lot about dashes, and I think it's actually good for me to just quickly say dashes are going to be one of the exceptions that you cannot buffer.
Yeah.
Dashes are because on the back end, most of them are 0 pre-fire. You're spending your whole time in your fire stage. Dashes are just full interruptible. They work exactly the same as they always have.
So yeah, if you like give me a free Cernanos out of his dash or whatever, it's going to stop him immediately where he was in the dash. It's not going to, allow him to complete his dash or anything like that.
Leaps are bufferable. And
But leaps
this
are
does
different.
make them stronger, but
I got a
we
video
think
here.
that this is the right decision for this system to feel holistic. So leaps are able to be buffered. And we use On Her because On Her is a great example of a leap that gets canceled a lot.
Yes.
It has a lot of
and it feels
pre-fire.
like garbage.
And you see him crouch. He does the roar all over the place, and you have to playing On Her into Sobek. Like how many times tried to leap, he plucked me. Tried to leap, he tail whipped me. I'm dead. Right now, you will get your leap off if you input it. And if you input a leap like On Her AO3 and you are CC'd during the pre-fire, you will land at your target location no matter what happens. If you get Sylvanas pulled and you're sliding along the ground and then your leap goes off after the pre-fire has ended, you will fly farther in order to land where you targeted. So
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, no matter where your targeter was when you initially press the button to use the ability, even if you get like Anher impaled into a wall in the pre-fire of your startup of your jump, you're still going to jump to where you initially targeted. That's kind of wild. That's going to lead to some weird animation sometimes, I feel.
it's real simple. Where you targeted is where you'll get. But if you are still CC'd when you land there, you will land still CC'd, right?
Yeah.
So you can play the example. This is an Athena taunt where
His
the On Her
example.
buffers his leap into the Athena.
Leap's buffered. He's
He
taunted
lands
midair.
where he had initially
When he lands, he's
targeted,
taunted
when
at
he
the end.
lands, still taunted.
And so leaps, I will say, are one of the areas where I'm most apprehensive about this system. I'm not entirely sure if I think leaps should be included in the buffering system. And that is purely because leaps are untargetable while they're in the air. You can still take damage if you had like tick damage on you or whatever. They're not immune, but they are untargetable in the vast majority of cases. And that's the kind of difference, between like if you're just doing it in a Danza jar, he's on the ground, he's stunned, he can't move, he can't turn his camera, he's still completing the animation, but he can still take a crap load of damage, he can still get set up for future CCs or whatever. Whereas with something like Anher Jump, if that goes off, you've wasted so much of the CC time while untargetable, and there's really not much counterplay to that. So I feel like it might feel kind of bad if Athena dashes in, Anher can so easily react with his jump now, and then just eat like most of the taunt animation while untargetable in the air, and then, he lands, maybe there's a tiny bit of taunt left over. And Athena taunt is one of the longer CCs in the game, and you can see that, we'll go through this once more.
None of the durations are changing for these CCs in this world.
So yeah, you can
This
see
is
here.
just, you can get to where you're going.
By the time he lands, like 60 to 70% of that CC duration is gone. And Athena Taunt is one of the longer CCs in the game. A lot of CCs will just completely whiff and they will be un-CC by the time they land with a lot of leaps in the game. I do feel like that's a little bit kind of frustrating to play into. If you have something like maybe a rank 1 Ymir freeze that only freezes for 1 second, if you freeze an Anher at the startup of his jump, by the time he lands, he's not going to be frozen anymore. And so you can basically completely delete your CC ability just by using this pre-fire trick, which is why I think leaps might be a little bit frustrating to play into in this regard. I do feel like maybe movement abilities in general, including dashes, including teleports, should not be affected by this system. Or at the very least, a kind of compromise change would be the full CC duration is applied as soon as you hit the ground. So instead of having this much of the taunt left over, you would have the full taunt duration left over when you land. And that would kind of, allow these abilities, you're still hitting them with the CC. They're still allowed to complete their leap if they were in the pre-fire, but then they're going to be CC for full duration when they hit the ground. You could do that as well, and that would prevent leaps from being so frustrating and overpowered to play into. But yeah, leaps are where I'm most apprehensive about this system. I think for general stuff like Danza 2 and stuff like that, I think this system is going to be really good, but leaps are one that I have a little bit of apprehension about.
Again, I want to reiterate, this is in slow motion. This is not easy to do necessarily, but this is to stop that feeling of I was halfway into the air and then I get ripped back down. That's not going to happen, right? So...
And yeah, it's going to feel good for the Anhur to do this, but it's going to feel absolutely fucking awful for the person trying to CC him to do this. And you do have to balance that feeling. You know, you want the people playing the certain god to feel really good, but you also want the enemies that are playing into that god to feel like it's fair. And this just doesn't feel like it's going to seem super fair. And that's kind of where the issue lies. You've got to balance that. You know, something has to be fun to play and fun to play with, but you also want it to be fair to play against as well. And I feel like this is going to be quite frustrating to play into. Obviously, the system in general will fix a lot of frustration, so I think overall it is going to be positive for the game, but this is a specific case where I feel like this is going to cause a lot of frustration, and it's going to make leaps ridiculously strong, and maybe if they have to nerf the cooldown of leaps to like 20 seconds or something, it's just going to feel really bad. So I feel like maybe this could be changed, but that's my main frustration point with this whole system. I think in general it's going to be really good.
Channeled abilities and dashes will work exactly like they always have. So channeled abilities like Guan 3 when that comes to the game,
Anubis Plague of Locusts.
Anubis Plague of Locusts. Fenrir Brutalize is one I've seen a lot of in here.
Yeah, so general channeled abilities and dashes will work exactly the same. We talked about this with Cernos dash before, but like if you start Anubis' 1, if you're CC'd in the pre-fire, it won't go on cooldown, just like if you were CC'd in the pre-fire of any ability in the previous system. But as soon as it starts firing, if you're CC'd in that portion of the ability, it will be taken and put on cooldown. And that's the only way you can really make it work with channeled abilities. I don't think Anubis should be continuing to spray locusts out of his mouth and doing insane damage while stunned. That would just be silly. So that's kind of the only way you can do it with channeled abilities, really.
Channels are interruptible, dashes are interruptible. They will work exactly the same as they always have, with no difference from Smite 1. Some abilities will also be special and not allow buffering, and Fenrir ult is a really good example of this. It would feel really terrible for Fenrir to be able to pick someone up and on her up, but he buffered his leap and then he's out of there, right?
Yeah, there will be abilities like this. You don't want, just like if Anhur like luckily or even skillfully timed his 3 to be able to jump away from a Fenrir ult. That would feel absolutely awful if it just completely took the cooldown of your ult and didn't bite them whatsoever. So there will need to be some that bypass this whole buffering system. And they can probably work on those specific cases over time. You know, they probably have some of them programmed in already, like Fenrir's ult, for example. But, you know, it may be that certain abilities need this added, certain abilities need this taken away over time. But yeah, that is pretty much everything you need to know about the new CC buffering system that's going to be dropping for Smite 2 in basically a few days. They said they were going to drop it later this week, probably Thursday or Friday. It's going to be going straight to live servers on CA8. It's just going to be dropped into the game. And then we'll get to test it, play around with it, feel if we like it, feel what needs to be changed about it, if anything. And yeah, it's going to be a big system game-wide change that is going to really impact the way the game feels, I think. As I said, I've not played with it, so I'm going to reserve my full judgment beforehand. But yeah, there you go. Let me know what you think down below. Even if you haven't played with it yet, which you won't done if you're watching this video as it goes out, but you know, let me know your first impressions of this system. Are you excited for it? Do you think it's going to be positive for the game, negative for the game? Let me know down below, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.